Reason. Things feel really bad on a regular basis right now. It feels like democracies are in decline, like strong men are on the rise. And if it's not nuclear war with North Korea that's going to kill us, well, maybe we'll all be melting from climate change. The poem that I've seen shared more than any other on social media this year has been Yeats's Second Coming. You know it, but I'll repeat the key part. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. I know, it's uplifting. But that gloomy feeling that Yeats captures so incredibly in that poem, and that we all sort of carry around with us these days, contradicts the data. Because if you look at the facts, the world is getting better on so many measures. As Steven Pinker has pointed out in his fascinating new book, Enlightenment Now, humans used to be lucky if they lived past 30 years old, so I'd be dead already. Today, life expectancy worldwide is around 70, and it is much, much higher in democracies like ours. 200 years ago, 90% of people lived in extreme poverty. Today, it is under 10%. The statistics for things like clean water and the eradication of major diseases are even more jaw-dropping. As for democracy, which is what I spend most of the time worrying about, Pinker points out that despite notable setbacks in countries like Turkey, the world has never been more democratic. 2/3 of human beings live in one. Reason, the power of the mind to think, understand, and form judgments by a process of logic, has given way to feeling, which fuels convenient narratives that we, or at least I, tend to nod along with. Let me give you another example, which comes up constantly, at least in feminist circles, and that is the gender gap in STEM fields. The popular narrative is that this gap is the result of systemic sexism in math and science and computer programming. And it's one that viscerally appealed to me, having been one of those girls that insisted I wasn't a math person and then had that reinforced. But this narrative is belied by the facts. The fact is that the more gender equity there is in a society, the greater the STEM gap is. Finland, Norway, and Sweden have the greatest gaps when it comes to STEM fields, and they are objectively the most equitable countries when it comes to gender. Whereas countries like Algeria, Turkey, Tunisia, and the United Arab Emirates have the most. It turns out that when women have the most choice, they are choosing not to go into STEM fields. The reasons for this are very interesting, and I suggest you look them up. Now, I could choose any number of examples. The left's perception of the motivations behind police brutality, say, which is not to deny the existence of police brutality, but to question the assumption that it is always racially motivated. Or the right's perception of immigrants' impact on the economy and society, which the data tells us is overwhelmingly positive, even as Fox News inundates us with misleading anecdotes about immigrant criminality. We need to get the facts straight, to let facts inform the stories we tell, rather than the other way around. We need to bring back reason. Doubt. Doubt. In 1944, Learned Hand, and there's no better name in all of American history than Learned Hand, gave a talk in Central Park in front of 1.5 million Americans, among them some 150,000 newly naturalized citizens. World War II was raging, and the event, a patriotic celebration, was called I Am an American Day. The talk that Learned Hand gave became known as the Spirit of Liberty. But his real theme was the theme of doubt. The spirit of liberty, he said, is the spirit which is not too sure that it is right. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which seeks to understand the mind of other men and women. The spirit of liberty is the spirit which weighs their interests alongside its own without bias. Doubt is essential for freedom. Doubt is essential for the freedom to change our minds when better, truer information comes along. Without doubt, we might still believe that the earth is flat. We might still believe that women don't deserve the right to vote, or that black people and white people shouldn't be able to marry each other. I'll give you a more relevant example. In 1989, a young woman was brutally beaten, raped, and left for dead in Central Park. 5 young black and Latino men between the ages of 14 and 16 were convicted of the crime. At the time, a real estate developer named Donald Trump spent more than $80,000 to take out ads in 4 New York City newspapers, calling for New York to bring the death penalty back. The implication being that these 5 teenagers deserved it. But these boys, who became known as the Central Park Five, did not commit the crime, even though they were jailed for it. Ultimately, their sentences were vacated, and the real criminal, a serial rapist, confessed. For those of you who have not seen the documentary The Central Park Five, about their story and the horrific miscarriage of justice, I can't recommend it more highly. Now, what's incredible is that Donald Trump is still insisting that they did it. I point this out because he's a textbook example of what we know about insecure people, which is that they never admit that they were wrong. The person capable of doubt, of changing her mind, of rethinking her assumptions, is the truly secure person. The quality of doubt, of saying to yourself, I think I'm right, but I'm not 100% sure. I need to recheck my assumptions. I need to give the other person the benefit of the doubt. That is the essence of the truly liberal mind and of the civilized person. Maintaining a constant maintaining a constant tension between doubt and confidence, between intellectual skepticism and moral courage. We need to suffer ourselves to think, as John Stuart Mill honestly described the process of thinking. It causes suffering in On Liberty, and real thinking requires doubt. Indeed, you could say it is the first principle, the 7th word that covers my other 6. Bring back doubt. So those are my 7 dirty words: imagination, humility, proportion, empathy, judgment, reason, and doubt. Perhaps I left some out. Perhaps you would have substituted some of your own. Skepticism, say, or merit, maybe opportunity. My point here isn't to offer you new certitudes or counter-certitudes. It isn't to open a new front in the left-right culture wars. Rather, my purpose is to warn you that the habits of mind that we must ferociously defend and nourish if we want to live in an open society, a society in which people can speak and argue freely in order to think a little more clearly, that those habits of mine are under threat, and not just from people who wear MAGA hats and rage against fake news. They are under threat also from people who think of themselves, no doubt very sincerely, as tolerant and open-minded. The truth about our politics today is that it is no longer a battle between the people we used to call liberals and the people we used to call conservatives. It is between open and closed, liberal and illiberal, big L, big I. And whether you consider yourself a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent, or whatever, you can't be indifferent to the outcome of this battle. Not if you treasure the right to dissent, to say no, to protest, to re-examine your assumptions, to speak and to change your mind.